All right. Welcome everyone to our Egoscue presentation about shoulder pain today. I'm Zach Veers. I'm the clinic owner in Seattle. I've been here for 9 years in Seattle. And actually, before that, I was in Portland. So I worked with Martin, as sounds like some of you know. I started there, but originally my Egoscue journey started when I was in college. So I studied exercise sciences and I was doing personal training and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do long term. And came across Egoscue through one of my professors. It had been a lifesaver for him with his chronic back pain. And when I first learned about it, this idea that we could help people feel better and heal through simple exercises, correcting their posture. So it was intriguing and thought, oh, this is great, something I can add to my repertoire. Um, of course, being young and naive, I didn't think it would apply to me. I thought this was just for old people. But it turns out I actually started having shoulder pain and back pain in grad school, playing a lot of racquetball. I kept getting injured. And
Mm.
so I thought, well, maybe I should try this Egoscue stuff. And sure enough, I got my pictures taken, and we'll show some examples in a minute here. But I got to see firsthand how how off my posture was, and my whole body was twisted, and everything was out of alignment. So then it really made sense. Okay, that's why I'm hurting. It's not the fault of the sport. I'm bringing a crooked body onto the court, so of course it's more likely to get hurt. So anyway, I started doing the exercises and right away was able to feel relief and kept me playing racquetball. So that's kind of what got me motivated to pursue this. I got certified, found the job in Portland, started working there. And then, yeah, opened up my own clinic. So I'm the owner here in Seattle, 9 years now. And that's my story. I still do Egoscue every day. It's still part of my routine. I've had my fair share of bumps and bruises along over the years, but I've always been able to recover from them and heal thanks to Egoscue. So it's something that is part of my lifestyle. So I'll turn the time over to Laura, introduce herself, and then we can get going with the presentation.
Hello. So I am Laura from the Portland Egoscue Clinic, and I took over the clinic from Martin and Kelly last year. And today I'm at our Cannon Beach clinic. We have a travel clinic here as well. So I go 3 days between both clinics at the moment. And my background also is in exercise science. I'm from Montreal and had a wellness studio there for over 20 years before relocating to Portland in 2019 with my husband. We have family here. And I've always been into sports and athletics, big skier, alpine skier. So I've also had my share of injuries, dealt with a lot of lower back pain in my earlier 20s. But I had some good wipeouts in water skiing and alpine skiing that have wrenched my shoulder, my hips, and my back. And so I discovered Egoscue over 20 years ago with at a conference that I was teaching at, and Brian Bradley, our VP, was also at that same conference. Started some conversations, began to understand what the Egoscue method was all about, and helped me start my journey into healing my own body. And so, like Zach, I have my regular menus that I do, and I can practice discernment when I wake up in the morning and think, okay, this feels a little off. What does my body need today? And so that's what I love about the method is that it offers tools to help us rebalance our body and that we look at the whole body from a systemic perspective as opposed to just symptomatic. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Um, but I used to think that I just needed to work on the shoulder or work on my back or work on my hip. But then when I understood that the whole body works as a unit, and every moving part affects the next part. So if something has been injured and starts to get tightened into protective modes, we start compensating. I know I did. And then other areas of my body started talking to me. So we're going to get into all of that. And I'm so happy that you're all here. We'd love to just hear in the chat a little bit if there's anything specific that you're dealing with. When it comes to shoulder, even just 2 years ago, I was a little over excited to get back on my rower and did a big training, an interval training, and ended up hurting my shoulder again just 2 years ago. And did the chiropractic work, did the massage therapy work. But there's a nice shoulder sequence that I really love that helps balance and stabilize my hips and work through my shoulders. And I was able to get back on track within a few weeks and heal that shoulder. So we're going to share some different tips and techniques here with you today. I'm going to let Zach take over and we'll look at some of the different issues that might be going on in the shoulder and what we can do about it.
Great. Thanks, Laura. All right. So for those who are new to this method, real quickly, the name comes from our founder, Pete Egoscue. I know that was when I first learned about it. I was like, what is this Egoscue? So it's pronounced Egoscue. It comes, we won't go into great detail about his background, but you can learn more if you go to our website or check out any of his books. But basically,
Pain-free book.
yeah, there we go, pain free. Um, he started this back in the 70s. He was an injured Vietnam vet, came back, and basically, no one, as many of you maybe experienced, the medical system couldn't really help him. He went through all the what was available to him and was basically just told, well, you're just going to have to live with it, or here's some pain medication, right? And he didn't like that answer. And so he basically was self taught. He didn't have a medical background per se. So he picked up an anatomy book and realized, our bodies are designed to, stand up straight on 2 feet and be balanced side to side and all these things. And once he started experimenting on himself, found out what helped him, he started helping others, and it just kind of grew from there. So um, now there's about 20 clinics. It's a franchise system. So you go to Laura, or you come to me, or go to, New York or Florida, any of these locations, you're going to get the same method, same technique and approach, regardless of where you go. So just a little background there. All right. Well, today we're talking about shoulders. So I just have a list here of probably the more common shoulder problems that people come to us with: arthritis, rotator cuffs, impingement, bursitis, labrum tear, thoracic outlet syndrome, frozen shoulder. So, any of you see something on there that you've experienced? I know I have. I've had I also separated my shoulder a few years ago, an AC joint. So that was fun to deal with. But anyway, I put this up here. We help with all kinds of these things. But what's different about Egoscue is we're not concerned as much about the what. That's what the doctors are really good at, is diagnosing and looking through the MRIs or the X-rays, and they can find the what, but we're concerned about the why, and that's really, we want to ask the question, okay, well, why did it tear? Or if it tore, maybe it was just an accident. Why is it not healing these several years later, right? Our bodies are designed to heal. So why do we end up with these chronic issues? So that's what we're hoping to help you all understand today. That pain is simply a signal. It's a warning, just like the check engine light on our cars. When it comes on, doesn't necessarily mean anything is broken. Usually is just a warning that, hey, something's not operating the way it's supposed to, right? So we have to figure out what that is and not just ignore it, try to cover up the light, or you know, um, we have to obviously figure out what turns the light on in the first place. So, oops. Now, our approach, as you've probably learned so far, is we look at the whole body to find out the why, because everything's connected, right? So, just like this house, you imagine our bodies kind of the same way. Maybe our head on top, and the shoulders are um, the next layer up here, and we have maybe our hips or our knees and our ankles, these kind of load bearing joints. But if it's crooked, if it's not stacked up properly, it's not going to be as stable, right? Things are going to break or tumble, or in our case, hurt. And so we are designed to move. Our bodies are built to run and jump and throw and climb. And our shoulders are really amazing joints, actually. If you think about it, they're the most mobile joint in our body, right? If I'm not mistaken. Um, but they allow for us to do all kinds of different things. Um, the problem is that most of us don't move as much as we're supposed to, right? You think back to when you were a kid, we probably all were more active then than we are now, I'm guessing. Even if we're doing sports or working out regularly or, trying to stay active, um, we typically just don't move our bodies through the range of motion that they're designed for, right? You think about when was the last time you had to climb something, climbing a tree or climbing over a fence, reaching overhead, reaching behind you, all these things our shoulders are meant to do. We kind of don't do it very often. We're limited to this little box in front of us where everything is convenient. And so we limit our movement, and then eventually we can't move as much, right? Things stiffen up, muscles get weak. Eventually things get hurt. Um, so when we have pain, again, we want to think about, okay, what's the true cause here? We can get rid of pain with drugs or surgeries. Sometimes those are necessary. We're not anti-surgery necessarily, but we just want to make sure that we're addressing the cause, because you can have tissues repaired or altered, but if you don't change, your movement patterns, your posture, the way your muscles are working, you're going to come out of that surgery with the same problem, and chances are the problem will reoccur, or something else will start to hurt too. So, this is just showing resting or you know not doing an activity like the sad baseball player here. I could have given up racquetball, right? Or Laura could have given up skiing, right? But that's no way to live life. If we just avoid the things that hurt rather than fixing why it hurts, ultimately we want to be able to be active our whole lives, right? I'm assuming that's why everyone's here. So, um, yeah, let's talk about posture and what exactly we mean by that. So, Laura, why don't you teach us about this?
hmm Well, if you come into any of our clinics, you're going to meet this dude, and we call him Freddie, Mr. Freddie Function. And when we look at Freddie, he's a very symmetrical body. If you fold him in half, he's pretty even and balanced from right to left. Now, no human body is perfectly symmetrical, yet we know that the more symmetrical that we are, the better we function and the better we feel. So you can get curious, and this is what we do in the first assessment. Actually, every appointment where our clients come into the clinic, we take photos and we evaluate the posture to say what's different right to left. So we have what's called here the 8 load joint design. So the 4 main load joints in your body are your shoulders, your hips, your knees, and your ankles. So when you look at your own body in a full length mirror, when we're looking at your body, we kind of zoom out first to say what's different right to left. One shoulder higher than the other, one shoulder more rounded than the other, one hip more rotated forward or higher than the other. Are your kneecaps pointing in or out, or is one doing something different than the other? Do you stand with your feet pointing straight ahead, or do you stand with your feet pointing out, or one out more in? These are all cues of how our body compensates, which then creates deviations in our posture. So we're looking for a centered and balanced approach from our nose, our sternum, down through the center of the hips, right into the center of the feet, and also horizontal lines from a balance from the shoulders, the 2 hips, the 2 knees, and the 2 ankles. I think you have a side profile there as well. So from a side profile, when we take your photos and then we graph these in our software, we now have also the AI that reads your posture and gives us posture objectives to see what's out of balance in the body. And it's quite fascinating. What we see is, are you aligned? If you look from a side profile, if we drop that line at the front of the ankle bone, does it cross the knee joint, the hip joint, the shoulder joint, right on up to the ear? So we look at that, and we also look at the S curve of the spine. Now, we often see, especially in the kind of culture that we're in now with technology, more of a C curve. So the upper back more rounded, and sometimes lower back has no curve at all. So these are load bearing curves that really help us rebalance the body and handle the stresses of day-to-day movement and life with greater ease. So when we lose that curve, or if we're not aligned from those four low joints, then there's more stress and strain that's put on other joints in the body, which then causes some muscles to tighten up. And that tightness then can lead to restriction of movement. And obviously, the symptom that we often feel is some kind of discomfort or pain. So Zach, I'll let
Yeah.
you go ahead and show the shoulder joint, which is one of the most unstable joints in our body. Take
Yeah.
a look.
Yeah. So we're not going to quiz anybody on the anatomy here, but we'll just keep it real simple. Just since we're talking about shoulders, it's really made up of these three bones. So your clavicle or your collarbone, kind of on the front, scapula is kind of that wing bone on the back, rests on the back of our ribs, and the humerus or your upper arm bone. So now, and then if we can look at some of the muscles too. These are only some of them. This is just the rotator cuff. That's a popular one we hear about a lot because it's typically where things get hurt. But you can see how relatively small muscles, they kind of fit intricately in there in your shoulder to allow all kinds of twisting and up and down, side to side, rotating muscle movements. But there's not a whole lot of space there. You see between these bones, like the acromion and the coracoid process. So that's where a lot of the impingements, where basically the muscles or the tendons here get squished. But if you think about going back to the bigger picture, the posture, imagine one of these shoulder blades is resting higher than the other, or maybe it's twisted forward. Maybe your one shoulder is resting forward of your other. So think about how that's going to impact all those muscles. They're all going to be at different lengths and positions, right? Um, and also, for you to be able to move your arm freely up and down, side to side, that shoulder blade needs to move too. So it's roughly for every 2 degrees you move your arm up, your shoulder blade should move about 1 degree. So it's about half. So if you go up 90 degrees to the side, your shoulder blade on your back should rotate up 45 degrees. Um, so just as a little test, this is something that you can see how just how it all fits together. The position of your back will impact your shoulder blade too. So if you just really round your shoulders forward, like just make yourself into a really poor posture for a second, just forward shoulders, maybe jet your head forward, and then try to raise your arms up in front of you and see how high you can go without moving your back. Probably not very far, right? So now stand up straight, pull your shoulder blades back and kind of rest them down. And then you can see how much more freely your arms move. So it just shows how it's all connected and it's not just a shoulder issue, but we have to look at the whole body if we want to affect these areas. So just a couple examples of some typical postural problems that can cause shoulder pain. There's probably more, but these are like the most common. We've got a couple slides. So on the left here, we have an elevated shoulder and hip. They usually go together. So the shoulders and the hips, they kind of balance each other out. So you can see on this guy, in his hip bones here, his right hip is higher and his left shoulder is higher. So this whole right side is kind of scrunched up, right? Um, so that's a typical problem. If your pelvis is not symmetrical, most likely your shoulders are going to adapt to that and they're not going to be symmetrical either. Then we have rounded shoulders. That's a very common issue. I mean, that's I, I mean, I would say almost everybody has some degree of shoulder rounding or basically internal rotation. The arms twist. So you see from the front, we can see the back sides of her hands, even though if you remember back to Function Freddy, his arms are at the side, so we only see the thumb and first finger. Now, when the arms twist inward like that, it can cause problems, right? A couple more. We have the forward head or thoracic flexion or kyphosis. That's where the upper back is rounded, just like we demonstrated a second ago. Remember that ear should be over on the gravity line. So this rounding here will really disrupt the shoulder's ability to move. And if we go even lower, so this lady has some of that rounding up here, but then we also have what we call a sway back, which is where the pelvis gets pushed forward. So you kind of jut your hips out in front of you, basically. And now your hips are in front of the shoulders, basically. And then the head usually comes forward too. So it's all connected there. And that becomes, we see that. And it's actually a hip issue most of the time. So we can't just focus purely on the shoulders if there's this underlying pelvis problem that you can do all the work you want on your shoulder and it's not going to get better until you fix those hips, right? All right, so now we're going to give you all participants a chance to practice what you just learned. So we'll go back real quick, refresh your memory. So remember, shoulders right over the hips, right over the knees, over the ankles, symmetrical, side to side. Same thing from the side view, ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. All right, so this is where you chime in. What do you see that looks different with this guy? What's off in his posture? You can unmute yourself and chime in or just type it in the chat, but we want to hear what do you see? This is his first appointment coming in. What do we tell him is wrong? Don't be shy.
You get to be the posture specialist right now.
Yeah.
What's different right to left? Is there a difference in the shoulders? Is
Right hip
his,
is up
Yeah,
yep.
good.
and
Thanks,
looks
ma'am.
like left shoulder might be down a little bit.
Is
Yeah.
that center line from his feet bisecting right up the middle towards his nose?
No,
We
it's off
shifted
to
to
the
one
right.
side. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do the hands look different? Is there different spacing between the arms and the torso?
Well, they're more forward, and the left one has more space than the right.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his rounded shoulders a little bit, but very rounded, slouched.
Yep. And on that side profile, do we see that line bisecting the ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, ear? It looks like as he goes up, right, that his body is shifting forward from that gravity line.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So, where do you think he had pain?
Maybe low back and hip.
Yeah, it's kind of a trick question because I mean, he could have it anywhere, right? This is where you start to see how it's all connected. So, if I mean, he did actually have low back pain, so good guess. But you could see how, oh, his shoulders are kind of at risk too, right? Being so rounded and forward. His neck looks really strained with how far forward his head is. Just the fact that he's
And his,
not centered is kind of looks like he's putting more pressure on his left side, so that could affect everything down to his feet and knees.
and his knees have too much of a load forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can actually see on that front view that the kneecaps look different because that hip is higher. So it shows that the knees makes it look like one leg is a different length than the other. We often hear that saying, oh, I have a leg longer than the other, but it's actually the hip that's sitting higher, which makes it look that way. And what's fascinating with hip disparity or difference in the hips here, if we were to compare his right side profile and left side profile, often that line looks very different because there's a rotation. There's one hip that's sitting forward or back. And that rotational force in the hip, because of that misalignment, makes the lower back work a lot harder. And that's often when we have low back discomfort, is because the hips aren't moving the way they should. So we say that a dysfunctional or an imbalanced joint steals or borrows from the joint above it or the joint below it. So sometimes that low back or knee pain in this example could be because of that hip imbalance or dysfunction.
Yep. We got a chat here. Been told I have a short
Mm,
leg for years. We got rid of my list and took 2 years of work through it. Nice.
good, Deb. Yeah. Yeah, it
Yes,
takes time for the body to adapt, but it will.
it is possible, by the way, to have a actual bone length difference, but it's pretty rare
Yeah.
for it to be significant. And really, only the way to know is you have to X-ray the whole leg, to measure the bones all the way up.
Hmm.
But most of the time, it's functional, meaning, yeah,
Yeah.
bones are the same. It's just the muscles are, basically tighter on one side than the other, holding you in a different position. So it makes it makes the leg shorter, but really it's just you're moving the hip. So,
The angle of the hip joints. Most of the time, you're right.
mm-hmm. Right. So here we are after going through a couple months of hard work with Egoscue,
Hmm.
and what looks different now, besides wearing a shirt.
Yeah, how do those lines line up in the center of his body and the side of his body now? Do you see a difference?
Yeah.
Hand position, the space between his torso
Oh,
and his arms
yeah,
is more balanced.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the center lines definitely.
Yeah, from the
And the
middle of his
knees,
feet right up to his nose.
Yeah, someone in the chat said he looks like he lost some weight or worked out. People always bring that up, and it's funny because he actually didn't. I mean, he didn't. He was doing his Egoscue exercises, but he wasn't. I mean, he didn't lose any weight. The reason he looks better is because, oops. So just because of his posture is better, right? When you push your
Yeah.
hips forward, if everyone just kind of thrusts your pelvis forward, I mean, your belly comes with it, right? So it makes your stomach stick out more. Your shoulders are collapsed and hunched forward. It kind of just, it's not very flattering, right? It compresses everything in the front. So, so it's
Yeah, and he
just,
has a narrow stance with his feet. I noticed a difference. Look
yeah,
at, he's got more balance, more steady on his feet
that's right.
with
He
a
just
wider
looks like,
stance.
probably looks stronger because he's more stable, right? He's more symmetrical, and that's the way our bodies are designed to look. So it naturally looks better, right? But yeah, much more balanced. Uh, what else? Everything lines up. Yep.
Hmm.
It's not perfect, right? We could still nitpick and say, oh, well, his, hands still aren't perfectly symmetrical, resting at his sides, right? But huge improvement over
Yeah,
how he was, and considering,
we're
um,
all a work in progress.
yeah, and this was a relatively
how
short.
long of work was this for him to have that change?
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was in within our typical 8 session package. So, 2 to 3 months. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. Why don't you tell us about this lady, Laura?
Yes, so this is one of our clients at the Portland Clinic. And so she has been a longtime Egoscue practitioner since 2017. She used to see Martin as well, and she's done over 30 visits. And so she's had lots of different menus and different tools to work with her body. She loves to play tennis. She loves gardening. She came in to see me in June. So you can see the dates here. These two photos, the before picture was taken June 3rd, and the second one was taken just this week, July 15th. So look at the difference in her shoulder position. Can you see? So when we take your photos, the software will put these little dots that shows all of your joints from your ankles, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, wrists, elbows, and so on. And so there's quite a remarkable difference just in these few weeks. So in
Yeah.
November, I'll share just a story, and I have her permission to share this story in her photos. So she went for a mammogram in November, and she said just that position of having to lift her shoulder and her arm, she used the words, it wrenched my shoulder. And she said, then I went to do groceries, and carrying those groceries put both of her shoulders into spasm. So she was having some pain in the shoulder. So when she came in, we did the full functional assessment. And what we found was that she was pretty stuck in one of her hips. And another clue was that she tells me that when she's in her car driving and when she gets out of her car, that her right hip and her right quadricep hurt. So it takes her a moment when she stands up, she kind of winces a little bit and struggles to stand. And that happened again in the clinic when she was in the waiting room. And I saw when she stood up, she kind of limped those first few steps because her hip was also hurting. So what we found when we evaluated her gait, there was a bit of a limp there because the shoulder is out of balance and her hip was out of balance. Well, in her case, it was a lot of the deep gluteal muscles. She was sitting a lot recently, and her hips literally, we can say that the glutes can go to sleep. We've got some muscles, all of us, there are certain muscles that can go to sleep and some that are overworked and over tight. So it's a matter of finding that balance, activating the muscles that are sleepy, and then teaching the muscles to relax, the ones that are overworking to restore that muscular balance. So once her front hip pain was resolved, as soon as we started activating her deep hips and glutes, once we got the pelvis into alignment, which you can see here in that photo, can you see that her right hip is lower than her left hip? And obviously that right shoulder is lower than the left shoulder. So once we got the pelvis a little bit more in balance and the muscles activated to hold her in that position, her upper back, her spine lengthened, her shoulders found more balance, and that resolved the discomfort. So this week, she left the clinic in no pain. Actually, putting her shoes on when she got up from the chair, I had to ask her because I saw it right away. I said, "Did you just notice how you got up from your chair? Was there any pain?" And she kind of laughed and she said, "Oh my gosh, no." And that's what would bother her when she got out of the car, out of a chair, that the hip would hurt. And then she would compensate by leaning at the shoulder, and they were really stiff. So this was kind of a double pathway that we were working through in her body, balancing the hips, which then realigned the spine and got the shoulders where they needed to be. And so it was fun to hear that she was pain free and she'll be back on the tennis courts with her coach. And that was her goal. She said, "I want to be able to and not be in pain." Those were her main goals. So she's well on her way.
Nice. It's always fun to see those success stories.
Yeah.
A couple other just examples here, just showing how this posture thing affects everybody, or it can, all ages. These are a couple other clients I worked with. Just the side profile showing, again, very common problem with the forward head, rounded upper back, forward pelvis. And I like, I mean, this guy was obviously really fit. He was strong, but he was getting shoulder pain, among other things, when he worked and when he exercised because of how out of balance his body was. You can be very strong and in good shape, but if you're out of balance, it's only going to help so much and things are going to get hurt until you fix the posture. So, and this lady is really inspirational. She was in her 70s when she came to me. Um, she was still, I mean, she was a wildlife photographer, so she'd hike, for miles at a time and into the mountains and taking pictures and lugging her camera and everything. And her pain was starting to interfere with that, so she was motivated to fix the problem. As you can see, she did. And then by the time she stopped working with me, she was back out taking pictures and not dealing with the pain anymore. But I just think she looks, I mean, it's almost like she reversed some aging, right? When you have kind of like the first guy, when you stand up straighter, you look better too. And not only do you feel better,
She looks taller.
yeah, taller, you know, nice proper curve in her spine now as opposed to this kind of C shape. All right, looks more like an S, which is good. So just showing you what's possible. So that's enough talking, I think, on our end. We're going to show you a few things now. These aren't necessarily, you know, prescriptions for your shoulder pain. Everybody here has slightly different postures and different problems and maybe different symptoms too, right? So we're going to show a couple exercises that should be relatively simple to do. But if you do have pain when you do anything, just stop, let us know. We can offer some suggestions, but this is just to give you a sample taste of what Egoscue is all about, and you should feel hopefully some positive things in your body have been doing this. So before we do the exercises, we want to do a little self-assessment. So we can't take everybody's pictures right now like we do when we do consultations, but you will have that chance later if you'd like. But so what we're going to do instead is just stand up and take off your shoes if you're wearing any. You can keep socks on, is fine. But I like to do this because it brings some awareness into your body too. But just kind of march in place a little bit first. Relax. Try not to think about your posture too much. I know we're talking about it a lot, but just go to whatever you feel is natural for you. Just let your arms hang at your sides. Let your feet go where they want to go. That's fine. And then you can even close your eyes if your balance is okay, because we want to just focus in on what we're feeling in our feet for a moment. So just get a sense of, okay, where's the pressure on my feet? Might move around a little bit, but generally, where does it settle? Is it the same on the right foot and the left foot? Is it heavier on one side? You might feel like you're more on the balls of the feet or more on the heels. Maybe you feel more on the inside edge, like big toe side or pinky toe side. So Real quick, can anybody share what they're feeling there? Where do you feel the pressure right now? Deb, feels good? Must be doing your menus.
Even.
Even? Okay.
That's
I've been
awesome.
around the block a little bit with Egoscue, so I kind of get all this stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Feels really uneven, like it's on the outside of my left leg, left foot more, and not very much on the inside of the foot. Definitely not on the center of the foot.
Okay.
And the left feels like it's more rotated out the whole leg a little more than the right.
Okay, good. That's a good observation. So definitely some differences between the two sides.
Hmm.
Anybody else
One foot
feeling
feel
anything?
heavier than the other.
Well, the left, I tore the meniscus in that knee spontaneously just from arthritis in that knee about a year and a half ago. So that whole leg has not been as strong.
Hmm.
It's been getting better, but yeah, I've definitely been off a lot since then. Walking different, compensating for that pain and weakness in that leg. So that's why I'm here. I've been working back to get some strength and posture back.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Smart.
Yeah, recondition your muscles.
So,
Yeah, they're a mess.
so just make a mental note of how you feel right now. You don't need to try to fix anything necessarily. We're gonna the reason you would feel out of balance is obviously just the way you're standing. If you move around, it's going to change where the pressure is on your feet. Ideally, it should feel even, right to left, same amount of weight, and even front to back. So the balls of your feet and your heels should be feel roughly the same, pretty even from the inside to the outside as well. So not heavily on the out or the inside is what we want. So we're going to do a few exercises now, and then we'll check it again afterwards and see if you feel a difference. So I'm going to stop sharing this. We can see a little better. Laura's going to help demonstrate the exercises. So take it away, Laura.
All right. So we're going to start with the first one in scapular contractions. The reason we're choosing this exercise today, and if you've come to any of our other webinars, we've often showed standing arm circles or elbow curls, which are wonderful exercises as well. Yet when there's shoulder pain, what we found is sometimes getting your arms out to the side, or if there's any impingement or tear, that hurts. So this exercise works just from the scapula or your shoulder blades. So you're going to stand with your feet about 5 inches apart. Make sure that you've got your alignment. Imagine that you're Mr. Freddie function right now, getting yourself standing tall and balanced in your feet. Now, I just want you to think about keeping the shoulders down away from your ears and pulling the shoulder blades towards one another and then release. So let's do that 20 times together. You're going to keep the shoulders down, pull the shoulder blades towards one another, and then release. So I want you to imagine switching on those muscles in and around the shoulder blade area, like you saw in the images earlier, in the middle back, not so much the upper trapezius. See if you can relax your neck and your jaw and just pull the shoulders back and release. And it's just a 1 to 2 second squeeze and then let go. Like it's an on and off. So you let the muscles activate and then switch off. On and off. And we usually recommend 3 sets of 20. Now, if you have a wall space near you, I'm going to back up to my wall. I love using the wall because that will also give your body and brain feedback as to what straight is. So if you have a wall space and you're doing this exercise, notice if both heels, both calves, both butt cheeks, and both shoulders are touching the wall evenly, because that will also give you feedback if there's rotation in the hip or you've got one calf or one butt cheek or one shoulder that doesn't touch the wall. So this is often an exercise that we've given with people that have some shoulder injuries, just standing at the wall and teaching your body to align using the wall. Now, once you've done your 20, just relax a little bit, shake out your body, and then you can do some more, 3 sets of 20. And usually the second set starts to feel a little better, that you can activate those muscles easier. And usually by the third set, there's more balance and symmetry. So you start to notice that the shoulders are moving more evenly and working together as friends.
Yeah, really important on this one that we don't shrug the shoulders. So we don't want
Right.
them going up at all. That's just why Laura talked about back, but keeping them down. So I like to imagine, the shoulder blades on your back. Try to put them in your back pockets of your pants, so you got to pull them back and then down towards the floor. So if that helps.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. Anybody noticing difference in how the right and left shoulder blade are operating? We see this a lot when we do your photos, and we don't see our own back bodies very often. When I've had my pictures taken, I was astounded one time to see how one shoulder blade was sitting higher and wider, so more protracted and elevated than the other one. And so this kind of an exercise retrains those muscles to get your shoulder blades moving more evenly so that in your gait, and this is another interesting thing that you can observe or have a friend or family member watch you when you walk. So when you walk, are you able to swing your arms the same way, right to left, in opposition to your legs? Sometimes we see one arm's moving and the other arm doesn't move at all, or it kind of swings out to the side. So we want to restore that balance, and getting good movement through the shoulder blades is one way to help that you through your gait too. All right. If anybody wants to share what they felt there before we move to the next exercise, feel free.
When I did it standing against the wall, my head was not touching the wall. It was probably an inch or two away from the wall. Is that posture issue?
Yeah, and that's very normal. We see that a lot. So when you saw the side profiles in the picture, so if we look at your side profile, your head is likely a little forward of the shoulders. Now, don't force your head to get back to the wall when we do these exercises. Just start practicing. And the other thing too, we haven't evaluated you, but a lot of times the epicenter of our posture is the pelvis. So if we have a pelvis that's more tucked under, and most of us do when we're sitting, look what happens to my upper back and where my head goes when I just tilt my pelvis back. So that's another thing to be aware of. And that's why feeling your two butt cheeks against the wall. Sometimes we have a block or a cushion or a pillow between the knees, which can encourage the hips to activate, which then will help the spine straighten and the head to come back. So that's another little tip that you can practice.
Thank you.
All
Don't
right.
force it.
Thanks for sharing.
Try to keep it straight, but if you can get to the wall comfortably without looking up at the ceiling, then great. But if not, just go to where it feels natural, and over time it should eventually get there. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on what you noticed in that exercise?
I know the one thing when you were talking about walking, I walk with a dog all the time. So, there's definitely uneven. I try to switch hands all the time, so I'm not, doing one side, but I guess I'm gonna have to pay more attention to that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I have a golden retriever. So, I mean, he's 13 and a half now, so he doesn't pull me anymore. But boy, when he was a young pup, he would really pull. And actually, one lady I'm working with now has a supraspinatus tear because her dog yanked her and pulled her shoulder. So, yeah, there's even those belts that you can wear so that the dog leash is connected to your belt instead of holding the leash. But switching sides and making sure that we're getting that even arm swing is a good thing to be aware of in practice. We can't change what we're not aware of. So that's what's fun, just to share these tips. We go, oh yeah, I didn't even know I was doing that, right? So once we're aware of something, then we can start adjusting our positions.
All right. Got one more exercise to try.
All right. So actually, and we'll have you retest after, but it's even fun after the exercise here, friends. What's different in your body or in your stance or your weight distribution just after having done that one exercise? There's 100% when you do any of these Egoscue exercises, something has changed in your body. And what is that? Is it in the weight? Is it in how you're standing? Is it how you're feeling? Is it how you're breathing? Okay, so we're going to go into a more hip-driven exercise now. So the next exercise are standing gluteal contractions. So let's come back to that nice balanced posture. Stand up with me here. This is one I'll do often when I'm sitting at my computer, because remember we have this issue of the glutes going to sleep, and there's a condition called glute amnesia. The glutes forget to do their work, and that can pull the pelvis out of alignment. So what I want you to do here is stand up nice and tall and squeeze your glutes and then release. Same 1 to 2 second activation and then a relaxation. activate, and relax. And you can check in with yourself too. They're your cheeks. You can put your hands on them and just sense, do you feel that you have one side that works harder than the other? Or one that activates before the other? Is one side more lazy? I know with the hip injuries that I've had through skiing, I had to re-educate my glutes. And when there's some exercises I do, and I notice that my left one doesn't engage the same as my right. And so after the first set of 20, that usually balances out. So notice what's happening as you're squeezing your glutes. Is it different right to left? Is it stronger or is it not switching on? You might feel, because this is also externally rotating your femurs, that this pulls you into the outer edges of your feet. It might balance something more in your feet. That's all connected. So 3 sets of 20 on this one. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release.
Another thing to watch
Zach,
out.
any notes?
Yeah, on this one is a lot of times people will try to use other muscles if their glutes aren't working very well. You'll start to try to, especially the abdominal muscles. So make sure your stomach is relaxed. Take a deep breath. You might be holding your breath without even realizing it and tensing your core, right? But soft stomach, quads, you tend to see that a lot. So check your thighs, make sure you're not tensing up your whole thigh, just the backside. You might feel like Laura talked about your legs will twist a little bit and turn out. That's normal, but you don't want to be like tensing up those thigh muscles. So
just focusing on your glutes. And so that first set of 20, especially if you sit on them a lot and they go to sleep, it's usually a nervous system response that they're kind of in protective mode, that you might not feel the evenness, but you get in, take a break for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and then do another set of 20. That should start to balance more by the third round of 20 repetitions or 20 squeezes. That should start to feel more balanced. So check in with your feet again. When Zach had you do that weight distribution, some of you mentioned that you felt more weight in the outer edges of the feet or more weighted on one foot or the other. Zach, is there anything you want to add to that, just to check in with the posture?
Nope, just
posture check.
go back, maybe shake it out a little bit, and then check in again. Let's see what's different. So curious, Pam, you sound like you had a lot of things you were noticing in your feet earlier. Do you feel anything different now?
They feel more towards the center, yeah. And there was a big change when I did the shoulder. I could feel a lot of change in the whole posture just from the shoulder squeezes. And yeah, I think the response feels really quick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty amazing, right? How quickly it can change.
Yeah, like the whole center line from the feet up to where I'm squeezing the glutes does feel like it's definitely more aligned and more centered in the whole foot, for sure.
Great. Yeah, you see, our shoulders need the whole body to work together. So these are often good. A lot of you that have seen this before, you have your own exercise menu of anywhere between 3 and 10 exercises to do daily. But these 2 that we've shared with you today can serve as wonderful posture resets. Every hour, remind your muscles what their job is to do, right? Get up and do a reset. I do these in the airport. If I'm traveling, I'll do them when I get up in the morning, or just taking a little break in the afternoon, or if I've been working with people, then I do just quick little resets here and there throughout the day, just to remind my muscles to continue doing their job. So, you'll start recognizing your posture habits during the day, and you can infuse these anywhere in your day.
Great. It's so great. So it seems easy.
We just need to be intentional to do it.
I've tried a lot of things. I haven't been able to do most of the exercises, PT exercises that are kind of traditional and pretty passive for the shoulders, because every single thing I did, I'd have more pain with very little movement. And they would just be shoulder squeezes, but they were more than 90-degree angle, pulling back like you're pulling a band. I couldn't even do a band. So to feel like I can start somewhere is great.
Yeah, and that's why we showed these with the scapula, and we've both found that a lot of times it's hard to do some of these. Somebody just asked a question about the wall clocks. that's not usually an exercise that we start with. It's one that we might work you into because we've got a lot of progressions. We've got over 500 exercises that we can pick and choose from depending on how much demand that your body needs. Too little demand, you're not going to see any change, but too much demand, it might hurt. And we want to make sure that you're starting with exercises that give you just the right amount of stimulation, but that it doesn't hurt. So
Wow.
that's where sometimes just working from the scapula is helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks. Zach, I think you were going to go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah. Let's talk about what the next steps are, and then we'll have some time at the end to answer more specifics. So just want to be mindful of the time here. But all right. So next steps. Hopefully you've learned some things today, but there's a few options for you now moving forward with what you can do with this knowledge. If you still have questions or you're still skeptical, maybe you're brand new to this, I highly recommend the book Pain Free. That was the one written by founder Pete Egoscue, and there's a chapter dedicated to every body part in there. So you can look for a chapter on shoulders or your back or even your ankles and your neck. So it's a great resource, even if you are a client or have been a client. I recommend everybody get it. So you can find it on Amazon or at your library too most of the time. Well, what about if maybe you're feeling like, oh, this makes sense, or I'm liking what I hear, and I just don't know if this applies to me. I've got XYZ condition. Can this really help me? I don't know how my posture is affecting it. We'd be happy to help you one-on-one answer some of those questions by offering a free posture evaluation. So we'll be able to take your pictures, look at them together, see what's going on, and talk about how that might be relating to your symptoms. So you can sign up for that. Won't cost you anything. Usually takes 20 to 30 minutes. We can do it on Zoom or in person if you're nearby a clinic. We won't necessarily.
You can do it on Zoom, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so, we do a lot of Zoom consultations.
Yeah, Zoom works great because we don't have to physically touch, right? As long as we can see you and you can see us, it works just fine. So we can get the pictures and put them in the software and add those lines and everything, just like in person. So, and then the third option, of course, is if you're ready to actually do something about it and you want to give this a shot, we're offering a 10% discount to anybody who signs up. We'll give you a week, if you want to think about it. But if you let us know in the next week, you can get 10% off. So just to be transparent, what our options are, the pricing here, we offer 2 different packages. And of course, after your first visit, we'll be able to come up with a plan of what makes the most sense for you, whether it's 8 or 16, just depends on where you're at. But Laura, do you want to talk real quick about just what to expect in a first visit and ongoing visits?
Sure. Yeah, we often get that question. Our first session, we will often say, just come in, do your first assessment. And the first appointment is 90 minutes and subsequent appointments are 60 minutes. And in that first appointment, we talk about your health history, we talk about your symptoms and what's going on and what your goals are. And then we take your posture photos, front, back, right, and left. We do some functional testing, get you into certain positions to see where your posture is compensating, where the deviations are, where the imbalances are. Then we can make some really good choices of targeted exercises that are tailored for your body with your abilities. So making sure that, number one, the exercises are not painful, but just the right amount of challenge, and finding the right position for you. Are you comfortable getting on the floor, on your back, on your belly? If not, then we can start with sitting or standing exercises. We generate then a menu of exercises depending on how long you're willing to invest every day, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, will depend on how many exercises we give you. And then we have an app for our clients, which gives you your exercise menu will be on the app with the video links so that you remember how to do them every day. And then you get the descriptions and the photos. We can also print that PDF and email it to you so that you have the printable version, so that it makes it really easy for you to follow those exercises daily. And then we'll usually book within either that same week or the next week to make sure that you have time to practice your homework. And then we follow up to make sure that you're doing your exercises correctly, and if there's any changes or modifications or upgrades that you need to make. Because then you'll graduate after a few sessions, the body gets used to it, and those exercises have done their job really well. We start making some changes in the exercise menu.
Yeah, perfect. And then ultimately, the goal, of course, is to teach you everything you need to do it on your own, right? We don't want you coming to us forever. But most of the time, once people are out of pain, which, depends on what you're dealing with, but a lot of people are pain free within those first few visits, or first couple months at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes it
And
takes
yes, Deb,
longer.
we have single sessions too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but eventually, pain is no longer an issue. We start to focus more on your strength, and maybe you're getting back into some activities that you've had to give up because of your pain. So then once the pain is no longer there, hopefully you return to activities. And then long term, you might come in for check-ins every now and then just to keep your exercises relevant and keep your body feeling good long term. So, and yeah, these prices, by the way, are for new clients. If you've done any Egoscue before, you can talk to us about. There's a few different options for kind of ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, we have maintenance pricing for that also. And Christine was asking if we can do the sessions on Zoom or come to the office. We see people all over the world. So yes, they can be all done virtually on Zoom or a combination of Zoom and in person.
Yep, and it's the same.
I'm in Beaverton on Cedar Hills.
Yeah, and it's the same cost, by the way, if you do Zoom or in
Yeah.
person. So spend the same amount of time with you. It's the same procedures and same results. So it's one is just you can do it from your own couch or your own living room. Same place Martin was. Yeah, same building, different
Yeah,
room.
just different suite, number 303 instead of 310 there.
Yeah.
This is so great that you offered this. I've heard about Egoscue for over a year, and I just, I was having so many different things with my knee and my shoulders and this and that. I just couldn't add one more thing, but I'm really glad to have the information and be able to plan for some sessions in the future. I definitely know it's going to be important.
Good. You could reach out to either one of us if you want to have a conversation. I know, Deb, you've got a bunch of questions. I saw them come through too. Either we're happy to answer those questions and address any comments that you have too, or you can chat on the phone a little bit, or you can pop us an email. We can answer those questions as well.
Yeah. So well, that's all we had for today. Any other questions that we didn't answer yet? Now's your chance.
Deb
So in
had
the
a couple
week
of
that we're
questions.
deciding about the signing up, we can just email either one of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Wherever you're on Friday Harbor, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I would be closer to you if you ever wanted to come in person, but yeah.
Never driving to Seattle again.
Yeah.
Sorry. I still love Seattle.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. So yeah, Zoom would work great.
Zoom will work. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in North Seattle for those in this area, north of the city. But yeah, Zoom is great. So what was the questions about? Scabs moving up versus down. Are you talking, Deb? Are you talking about the um, wall clock or something
Yeah,
else?
I was talking about the wall clocks. I mean, I was when I was well, I still do them because they're amazing, and they got rid of my golfer's elbow. I had that for years, and it's gone. It's so amazing.
Nice.
I'm assuming that's the one that mostly did it,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Thanks,
just
Lily.
I've been doing a lot more looking at shoulder stuff lately, and everybody keeps saying when you raise your arm, you get about here, you want to shrug and bring the rest of the shoulder up, so you're using, your scap. You're not letting your scap hang down, and they want all this scapular movement. Well, the wall clocks, okay, so let's say I'm here. The coaching on that was to pull your scaps down, which is the exact opposite of what everybody else is telling me to do when you're raising your arms.
Yeah, I think this might be a scenario where we're probably saying the same thing but maybe different
Okay.
interpretation. So like we talked about, for you to raise your arms overhead, your scap has to move. Like you
Yeah.
can't, like it's going to move some extent for you to be able to raise your arms, above 90 degrees. So that's normal. Like we do want the shoulder blades to make their natural gliding motion.
Yeah.
What we don't want to do is as you get up here to be going like this and elevating them so high that, now you're like overusing your upper traps and you're not using any of the mid and lower traps, right? So there's a balance, and it might need some coaching on that individually. But yeah, at Egoscue, we typically keep the shoulders down whenever our arms are overhead. It doesn't mean your shoulder blade's not moving. It's still moving up relative to where it was when you're at rest, but we just don't want to. Most people will excessively, shrug like this, which is not helpful. So,
Okay. So I need to understand a better balance of that shrug.
Yeah, and that depends on you too, Deb. When we have our eyes on you, we can see if you're overusing upper traps. A lot of people overcompensate, and which is why then we'll say try to use and balance the lower muscles and the mid back muscles. Most people are overly activated in those upper trapezius muscles, and we're just trying to find that balance in and around the shoulder blade area with the various movements and exercises we're teaching.
Okay. We might have to do something on that.
all right. Any
All
last questions
right.
before we
Yeah,
let you?
thank you for those great questions. And thank you everyone for your participation and for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll hear from you soon. Thanks for joining.
Thanks everyone. Bye for now.